the day after Halloween is dangerous too, because that's where the toilet paper is left over or the candy wrappers are all over the ground. Whatever it is, there's a mess on the ground after Halloween usually. So be on the lookout the couple days after Halloween when you are taking your dog out for walks, that they're not picking up items and eating them off the ground.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dog Sense. I'm your host, Kathy, and I am joined by my co-host, Sarah. Hey, Sarah.
Hey guys. All right. So this week we are focusing on a topic that not a lot of people think about, but is really, really important just based off of what we hear from students every single year about the Halloween holiday and their dog. All right. So this topic is going to kind of be about how to stay safe on Halloween and how to make sure that you don't kind of make some of the same mistakes that we have heard from students about their dogs on Halloween. First one, obviously, candy is not for pets, right? But so the thing with the chocolate, so yes, chocolate is toxic to your dog, but also don't totally panic if they get into some of it, because if you have a bigger dog, it's basically based off of the weight of your dog, how much chocolate they can actually handle. So yes, of course, keep it out of sight. But you can also look up what that ratio is to know, so you don't have to totally panic if, God forbid, your dog gets into some chocolate. It can be lethal though, right? So if you have a little dog or you have like a giant bowl of candy for the kids to come get, make sure it's out of the way. So some of the symptoms of chocolate poisoning can include vomiting, diarrhea, rapid breathing, increased heart rate, and even seizures. You also want to be careful within the candy that it doesn't have the sweetener xylitol in it, because that can be incredibly poisonous to dogs as well.
And we hear this every year.
Yeah,
right.
It happens. Exactly. It happens every year. Someone either calls us panicking because their Great Dane ate a mini Hershey and we're like, don't worry, he'll be fine. But there's also then the stories where, oh my God, my Yorkie got into a massive, chocolate pumpkin, right? That's going to be an issue.
Or how about the Yorkie that was pooping out colored tin foil and she found out he had gotten into the Hershey's Kisses.
Yeah, exactly.
That puppy to the vet ASAP.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to number 2. Do not leave your dog alone in the yard during Halloween, because if you have trick-or-treaters and you're in an area where there's a lot of them, and if this year it's on a Sunday, so dogs and kids are going to be out trick-or-treating. And so I want you to make sure that your dog is not put into a situation that is scary for them, or somebody throws candy over and the kids are yelling and they're dressed like freaky things. Like, I don't even have to explain that, right? Don't do it. It's not good for your dog.
And also, they can get into trouble out in the yard as well. Kids, toss their candy, it rolled into your yard, that kind of thing. They'll eat the decorations, all that. Up next, keep your dog confined and away from the door. Usually in a household, when the doorbell rings, the dog goes nuts, goes bum rushing at the door. Reasons why this is especially dangerous on Halloween is your door is going to be opening and closing quite a bit. And it might not always be an adult who's opening the door. It might be one of your kids who's opening the door, and they're not necessarily ready to block your dog from them going sprinting out. Next piece of this is that, God forbid, someone's wearing a scary costume and the door opens, your dog might totally freak out, and they might have a reaction that could result in maybe they lunge and bark towards the other person. Maybe they scare a child. Maybe they knock over a little kid at the door, that kind of thing, right? So try to keep your dog confined and away from the door. Maybe they're in a crate with an awesome Halloween themed pumpkin Kong or something, right? Or have them tethered in another room, or have another family member with the dog in a back room.
I have an awesome story to that point.
You do. Yeah, you do.
So my student, who has 2 labs, and she shall remain nameless, as shall her dogs, she had taken all the precautions. She put her dogs behind a gate. The bad thing, though, was that gate was facing the hallway to the front door, so they could see everything. And she opened the door, and there were these 2 little kids, like 6, 7, short, and they were dressed as monsters. And so when she opened the door, both children simultaneously went, rah! And her 2 labs simultaneously went over the gate and one of them grabbed the kid and yanked him into the house. Now, these dogs were not aggressive, but they were like, what is going on? They were overstimmed. They were super cranked, and they did something very out of character. The kids started screaming in the costume. And do you know what the mother did? She started yelling at the kid. She was like,
oh no.
you deserve it. I told you not to do that. I don't want you making those noises. You upset those poor dogs. And my student is holding the candy thinking, well, I may not have a law student on my
Right,
hands.
exactly.
Dumped all the candy into the kids' bucket,
God.
shut the door, locked it. Halloween was over before it even began at her house.
And in the dog's defense, those little children dressed as monsters may have looked like a giant tug toy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that many dogs are prepared for that. And additionally, if you don't have small children,
no, they're not prepared for children dressed as monsters screaming roar at the front door.
Yeah. It took everyone by surprise. I can say that my student included. So yeah, don't do that. Now, next is don't let your dogs get into pumpkins or corn cobs or any of the decorations that you have out. I can tell you from personal experience, I've had students whose dogs have ingested the corn cobs because they make like that harvest thing by the front door. And that is called an obstruction or foreign body. That's also called like $5,000 to remove it. And your dog can be very sick and very injured from it. So you want to make sure that there are things that you have decoratively that your dogs can't ever get to.
Yeah, speaking of which, don't keep lit pumpkins where the dogs can access them, right? So if your front yard is fenced or something and you have the lit pumpkins out on the front porch, be very careful about that. They can not only risk burning themselves if they go to investigate it, but they can knock them over and literally cause a fire, which of course we do not want on your front step.
Yeah, and that's why God created candles that have a little switch that light up. You want light in your pumpkin? Get something with batteries, stick it in there, and don't let your dogs get to that either because they'll eat the batteries. But goodness, if you have dogs, like watch it. No tiki torches, no fire pits, no lit pumpkins. Like think about it. Everything is a hazard, including wires and electrical cords, because if chewed, could be a life-threatening thing. And I also, nobody's surprised, have a story about that. I had a student, this is over Christmas time. She called me and she's like, dog's name omitted. She's not eating, she's not drinking since last night. Can I still bring her to my lesson? Which is funny. I'm not a vet. But I play one on TV and I'm like, sure, I'll take a look at her. Right. So the dog came over and she was really sad. This was a usually very enthusiastic dog. Tail was tucked. She's like, so the first thing I do, I want to open her mouth. Is there an obstruction? Did she get a stick stuck in the roof of her mouth? Because that happens. I open her mouth. Her top gum on one side is like necrotic and rotting. Her tongue, there's a piece of it that's necrotic as well. And I say to her, it looks like this dog had something electrical happen. And she's like, oh, no way. Our lights outside, our Christmas lights, they went out last night. We thought it went out. She goes back home, takes the dog to the vet, then goes back home. Right. The dog chomped on the outdoor power cord and locked its mouth apparently and burned out its mouth and then burned out the lights on the house. Like they had to remove part of her tongue. It was terrible. So this stuff happens. We're not making it up. I do not want you to be the next story on the podcast.
All right. So one way that you could wind up as the next story on the podcast, because we hear about this all the time. And granted, like, yeah, at the school, we do like a Halloween parade with all the dogs in their costumes and stuff, but don't dress your pet in a costume unless you know they'll love it. So a lot of dogs have issues with body handling. A lot of dogs might be nervous. Some dogs totally don't mind. You can throw like a cute little like pirate costume on them. No big deal. But make sure it doesn't constrict their movement, hearing, their sight, ability to breathe or bark. It's not worth totally terrifying your dog to get that cute picture, right? So how you can test this out, grab a costume, practice putting it on and off them, have like some dress rehearsals, maybe the week or so before to see how they feel about it, right? Try to make sure that, if they're really, really uncomfortable in that costume, I'm sorry, it's not worth the picture. You're going to ruin kind of part of your relationship with your dog. Like, just don't do it.
No. And I mean, look, if you think back on your life with your dog and you're like, you know what? When he got spayed or neutered, I couldn't keep that coat on him. Or when she was in heat, those pants wouldn't stay on. And it was like a wrestling match. Like, this is your clue that your dog is not going to like it. And if you're saying, I can't really brush my dog or clean their ears or wipe their feet, don't do it. Like, just don't. You know what? That's why we have filters on Instagram. You can go on Canva, put a picture of your dog, put Halloween-y stuff around them. But yeah, save yourself your trip to the ER or somebody in your family in case your dog bites, because that happens too.
Yeah, and also, a couple of my dogs, I can easily put costumes on them. Great. One of my dogs, I absolutely cannot. But what I do for him is I put the little like a little hat, like one of those little like hats, or even like a little bandana that has like the Velcro on it. You could do a little thing, like a little bandana is adorable, right? But I'm not gonna force him to freaking put on a Chewbacca costume. Like he's gonna hate me and he's gonna bite me.
Yeah, and you know what? They don't celebrate holidays. So don't get yourself all in a tizzy. Dress up your kids, dress up your spouse, dress up yourself. Leave your dog the hell alone.
If you have a house plant, you can dress up your house plant as well.
Yeah, maybe I'll dress up this house plant.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so next is IDs. All right, we hear this all the time. Dogs get spooked from fireworks on 4th of July and New Year's. And I feel like fireworks are like every day of the year now. They're not just for holidays anymore. At least it's happening like that up here. We see that with dogs who get spooked. You open the door to give candy and they see one of those kids and they blow by them and they run out. So you need to make sure that your dog has ID. My preference is a multi-layer, of course it is, tactic. The first is a microchip, but a microchip's not going to help you if your neighbor finds a dog and they don't know how to scan it because they need to go to a shelter or the vet. So what would really help if somebody grabs a dog is an ID collar with your cell number on it, nice and wide, reflective, and the word reward. Because you know what? My dog is trained. I don't want their name on them. I don't want somebody to go, "Ooh, hey, Ray, sit." And then she sits there like, I was thinking of getting a golden. I'll just keep this one. No, but I mean, but look, if you have a dog who somebody wouldn't keep, you're like, oh, they'd give him right back. Yeah, you can put their name on it.
Well, that's all right. No one would be able to catch my dog.
No, but that's words would say, "Don't touch me."
Yeah, but that's another thing too, though. Maybe your dog is spooky or nervous, and the reason why it's so valuable to have those wide width collars with your phone number on it is because all the time, not all the time, but pretty frequently, I see loose dogs running around. I know it's not worth trying to catch them anymore unless I open the door. They're very friendly because they're going to run. But if they hit a big 1 or 2 inch collar where I could see the phone number on it without having to get too close, I'm much more likely to be able to call the owner, let them know, hey, I saw your dog here and here, so that you can go get them, because it's really hard to catch a loose dog.
We also talked about this in a previous episode. I think it was on traveling, that if your dog is super spooky, you could get a body vest, and they use it for service dogs, but we have students who put it on the dog big. It could give you giant letters, like bigger than a collar. And if your dog has long coat, the collar kind of covers it, right? But the body vest sits over it and it would say reward and your cell phone. And as we talked about, sometimes it's a way to meet and greet because guys get your number, or girls.
Oh my God.
It's happened. I don't use it now. All right, what's our last tip, Sarah? The big one.
Yeah. Yep, the last one. So, and this is honestly, no one thinks of this, but again, we hear all the stories, so we know the day after Halloween is dangerous too, because that's where the toilet paper is left over, or the candy wrappers are all over the ground. Whatever it is, there's a mess on the ground after Halloween usually. So be on the lookout the couple days after Halloween when you are taking your dog out for walks, that they're not picking up items and eating them off the ground.
Yeah. And if you live in an area like I do, where sadly the weather changes, you get fall and then hideous winter, there's leaves on the ground. So you don't even see it. So you're walking, maybe you're not paying attention to your dog, which you should know better than that by now if you listen to us all the time. And you suddenly notice your dog is nomming, and you look up and there's half a Twix bar hanging out his mouth. That's not good. So you have to focus, as always, make it a training walk, have high value stuff, be practicing relationship building, engaging, and it keeps your dog out of trouble and out of your vet ER.
Absolutely. All right, guys, as always, if you like what you hear, jump over to whichever subscription service you download from. Like, rate, subscribe, tell a friend, share this episode once we post it around Halloween time, so that your neighbors, your friends, your family can also listen to these awesome tips and tricks, so that we can continue to create an awesome community of dog lovers and learners.
All right, Sarah, this was a good one. It wasn't even so scary.
It's just scary what happened to your dog.
Right? Oh my gosh. I know. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. And we will be back with another episode really soon.